So, you know the drill.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most universal human experiences there is. Right after checking if you actually lock the front door, you have a critically important task, maybe a huge report, or that application you have to fill out, or just organizing that mountain of receipts.
Right. And it's been on your to-do list for, what, 3
At
weeks?
least. And you spend all that time just staring at it, like it's some sort of aggressive houseplant that might just, I don't know, attack you if you get too close.
And it's not like you've been idle for those 3 weeks. You've definitely checked your email about 100 times. You've re-cleaned the pantry.
Oh, absolutely. You've planned how you're going to approach the task.
Yeah.
You've meticulously color-coded the folders where the finished work will eventually go.
You are mentally consumed, but you just cannot physically start.
And then it happens. The clock ticks over to, say, 11 p.m. the night before the absolute no more excuses deadline, and boom.
Suddenly you're a machine.
An unstoppable high-efficiency machine. You write 2,000 words in 3 hours, it's done, it's actually surprisingly good, and then you're left with just one question.
Why didn't I just do this 3 weeks ago and save myself all that agony?
Yes, that question is the whole mission of this deep dive.
And the sources we looked at, they argue the answer isn't laziness. It's not a character flaw. Your brain was actually waiting for something very, very specific to happen.
It was waiting for what the source material calls psychological alignment.
Exactly. I love that term.
Me too, because that feeling while you're waiting, it is truly agonizing. It's not rest. It's this high anxiety limbo.
It is. A good analogy is standing at the edge of a really cold swimming pool.
Okay.
The water looks miserable. You dip a toe in, check the temperature, you tell yourself you'll jump. But you wait, and you wait. You're physically capable of jumping, but your commitment systems are just offline.
And the trigger, that cannonball moment, only happens when someone, or in this case, the deadline, pretty much yells cannonball and splashes you.
Right. Suddenly you're in, you're committed, and you're swimming like an Olympian. No more resistance.
So we're going to explore what triggers that exact moment for the brain. And, more importantly, how we can maybe trigger it ourselves.
That's the goal.
That swimming pool analogy is perfect because it really captures the feeling of that waiting period. The source calls this state active suspension. We're stuck in this exhausting middle zone. The task is sort of turned on in your mind, but it's not. It's not authorized to run.
It's the ultimate energy leak. It's taking up all your mental RAM. You're constantly thinking about it, worrying about it, but you haven't actually invested any energy into the action itself.
And here's the wild part. The ability was always there. The skill to write or synthesize or whatever it is, it was there all along.
So the sources make a really strong case that the energy drain of, writing those 2,000 words is actually tiny compared to the mental energy drain of not writing them.
Absolutely. The real cost is carrying that task around in your, mental backpack for weeks on end.
It's like you're constantly pulling out a 20-pound weight, sighing at it, putting it back, pulling it out again.
All while feeling this vague anxiety that you should be lifting it. The anxiety is the real weight.
Exactly. And we burn so much energy just carrying that anxiety.
I think everyone listening gets that feeling. You're not resting, you're not working, you're just worrying about the work.
We'll take the specific example from the source material about calling the dentist.
Oh, this is a classic.
You spend 2 weeks thinking about it. You Google reviews of the office. You compare their hours. You spend 5 minutes scripting the exact conversation in your head.
And all of that somehow feels harder than the actual 3-minute phone call.
Which you only make when a toothache finally forces your hand. The doing was never the hard part. It was that psychological waiting room beforehand that just consumed all your time and your spirit.
So the deep insight here is that it's the contemplation of the commitment that burns us out, not the commitment itself. Procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's a defense mechanism against committing too early.
So if the brain is stuck in that holding pattern, what's it actually waiting for? What signals does it need?
The 3 pillars.
Our sources identify 3 specific factors, the 3 pillars of psychological alignment. They have to line up perfectly before the execution mode gets authorized.
Okay, let's break them down. Pillar 1, reality alignment. I'm guessing this is the most straightforward one, the deadline.
It's the simplest, but it is the most crucial. The task has to go from being a theoretical plan, a wish or a suggestion.
To being undeniably real.
Exactly. The brain is fantastic at dismissing vague plans.
So what's a good illustration of that lock-in moment?
Okay, think about when you're getting ready to leave the house. You have a vague plan to get ready soon. That's theoretical. It has no weight.
Right.
The reality alignment trigger is your friend texting you, "I'm outside."
Yes. Instant panic.
Suddenly, the deadline isn't a future point on a calendar. It's physically standing outside your door, and you are still in your pajamas. That theoretical plan becomes an instant, high-speed transformation. Reality has locked in.
That makes total sense. The pressure is external. It's undeniable. Okay, so that's the outside pressure. What about the internal check? Pillar 2, responsibility alignment.
This is the brain calculating the full weight of commitment.
Yeah.
It's very hesitant to begin a large task because it knows that starting means accepting the full responsibility of seeing it through to the end.
There's no just casually wandering off.
Right. But why is it so worried about committing if it knows it can do the task quickly, like we saw with that 11 p.m. hyperfocus?
Good question.
Because commitment takes up finite mental energy. The source uses the analogy of tearing open a bag of chips.
Okay.
Once you tear open that bag, you're locked in. You are committed to the potential destruction of the entire bag. The brain waits until it's absolutely sure you have the internal bandwidth and the focus time to handle that commitment without distraction. It's an all-or-nothing switch.
So it's not a fear of failure. It's a fear of the responsibility of that sustained, singular effort. That's a powerful idea. And that brings us to the third piece, emotional alignment.
Right. This is the brain asking a simple question. Do I have the necessary internal resources to handle the stress and the vulnerability this task requires right now?
Vulnerability is the key word there.
Mm-hmm.
So many difficult tasks, like writing a cover letter or having a tough conversation, they require us to be emotionally exposed.
Exactly. It's like when someone suggests karaoke. In theory, it sounds fun, but actually getting up there, that requires your emotional state, your confidence, and your readiness to potentially embarrass yourself to all line up at the exact same moment.
The brain won't greenlight a mission that requires emotional capital if you're running on an emotional deficit.
And all three, reality, responsibility, and emotion, they have to hit green at the same time for the execution mode to finally kick in.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because when those three pillars finally snap into place,
Usually thanks to a looming disaster deadline.
right, you experience what the source calls the wild part.
Which is that sudden, almost superhuman clarity. How does that alignment translate into such extreme focus?
It's the elimination of decision fatigue. For 3 weeks, you were plagued by overthinking.
Should I use this font or that font? Should I start with the intro or the middle, all that noise?
When the three pillars align, all of those options just vanish. The deadline forces optimization. It eliminates all that mental friction and all the non-essential choices.
And you discover you were suspiciously good at the thing you were avoiding.
I have definitely had that moment where I'm just surprised by my own efficiency.
That intense focus is incredibly efficient. You find out you can write 2,000 words in 3 hours. Or you can learn enough about advanced tax deductions in a single night to file your return.
The brain compresses a 3-week task into 3 hours by just cutting out 90% of the internal debate.
So what kinds of tasks is this high-pressure late-night system actually good for? Because it clearly works for some things.
The source identifies tasks that have a clear endpoint, a definite external deadline, and a one-and-done nature.
These are perfectly suited for that wait until reality forces alignment approach.
So, booking that complicated one-time flight, filling out that complex but necessary legal form, making a huge decision that just needs a focused burst of mental energy.
Precisely. There are tasks that can't really be ruined by waiting, and when you finally do them, they're just done. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
The difference being that you spent 3 weeks hovering the Band-Aid over your skin, thinking about the best way to rip it.
Exactly. When the brain finally commits, the action is swift and it's complete.
But this hyper-efficient system has some pretty serious flaws we need to talk about.
It is absolutely terrible for anything that lacks a built-in external deadline.
Because without that external pressure, reality alignment pillar 1, it never happens. The system never authorizes the mission.
Correct. So tasks like consistent exercise, learning a new language, starting a retirement fund,
Maintaining complex relationships.
all of those things, they never send you a calendar alert saying, hey, this is due now. So the brain just keeps waiting for alignment that never arrives.
And the result of that is the chronic low-level guilt we all feel About the 6-month unused gym membership or the language app we downloaded but never opened.
The system fails. It can't generate the internal pressure needed to substitute for that external reality lock-in.
Which leads directly to the high-risk situations where last-minute panic is genuinely disastrous. Because some tasks just require time, not speed.
You cannot cram everything into that 11 p.m. hyper-focus session.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
If a task requires compounding knowledge, like, say, preparing for a major exam,
Where you need long-term memory formation.
or if the task involves other people's inflexible schedules, waiting is just catastrophic. The system is optimized for speed, and that often sacrifices quality or memory or coordination.
So we recognize this pattern in ourselves. We know that procrastination is systemic, not some kind of moral failing. And telling ourselves to just stop procrastinating is completely unhelpful.
The sources compare it to telling someone to just be taller.
Right. So the goal has to be understanding and engineering the conditions, not, changing our fundamental nature.
Which brings us to the core question. How do we trigger those 3 pillars of alignment without waiting for an actual disaster?
Okay. The first approach is critical and it's non-judgmental. Stop fighting the system and start labeling your tasks.
So when a new task comes in, instead of just filing it under must do someday, you ask yourself, is this a wait for alignment and then execute task? Or does this need consistent, small bits of attention?
Just labeling it provides a huge amount of psychological relief. It's not a moral judgment. It's the difference between beating yourself up for 2 weeks about not starting a report.
And just realizing you've moved the report into the mental queue where your brain processes these one-and-done tasks.
Permission granted, guilt reduced. You eliminate the emotional energy you were spending fighting your own nature.
I think that's incredibly liberating.
Okay.
Okay, approach number 2 involves manually engineering reality alignment. We have to create artificial deadlines that our brain will actually respect.
And we have to emphasize this can't just be an entry in your personal planner.
No, the brain's too smart for that.
It has to be a real-world commitment, something with an external consequence. The best way to do this is to bring another person into it. Tell a friend or a colleague you'll send them your draft by Tuesday night. That social contract becomes the deadline.
Or book a non-refundable appointment to do the thing. Pay for a service in advance. The money or the social consequence. They create genuine reality lock-ins.
You're manually flipping the reality switch that your brain usually waits to be flipped automatically. That social consequence is huge. The brain cares deeply about not letting other people down.
Often more than it cares about letting ourselves down.
True. And the third approach addresses the other pillars, especially the fear of commitment. Reduce the psychological weight of starting by building in the expectation of change.
Yes, reduce that commitment fear. So if you're starting a huge writing project, just assume version 1 is going to be scrapped entirely.
If you're booking travel, assume you'll probably modify the plans later. If you're designing a presentation, commit to only spending 20 minutes on the first slide.
It sounds a little counterintuitive, but by lowering the stakes for the initial effort, you make it so much easier for the responsibility and emotional alignments to happen.
Precisely. The brain is way more willing to start a process it knows isn't permanent or perfect. It's the difference between jumping into a pool where you know you can easily get out
Versus jumping into the ocean, which feels like this massive, overwhelming commitment.
Give your brain an easy exit route, and it will be much more willing to jump in.
So here's the core takeaway for you as we wrap up this deep dive. You are not broken. You are not inherently lazy.
Your brain is simply running a very specific operating system that requires 3 types of alignment: reality, responsibility, and emotion before it authorizes execution.
And the trick isn't to fundamentally change your personality. It's to understand which situations work with your system and which ones fight against it.
Once you internalize those 3 pillars, you can stop waiting for this mythical motivation to strike and start engineering the external conditions that trigger your natural high-efficiency execution mode.
And if we look back at that 11 p.m. hyper-focus moment, that last-minute execution mode is, frankly, incredibly well-functioning.
It is. It has intense focused, total clarity, 0 time for self-doubt. It's peak productivity.
Horribly timed.
And what's fascinating here is that the ultimate level of productivity might not be about eliminating the system or forcing a change in your nature. It might be about learning how to manually trigger that psychological alignment before the disaster forces it.
If you could consistently channel that 11 p.m. clarity and focus at 11 in the morning, what would you be capable of achieving?
That's the question to mull over as you organize your next big task.